She's she's an avid advocate. She is an avid advocate for diversity and intersectionality in technology and accessibility in web development. Jemima is also a systems engineer and alumnus of the University of Lagos. Wow. She started her professional career as a front end web developer in 2017 and since then has garnered a lot of experience working with Omonel, Nature's Own Wonder, Sumo Soft, Telesoftas, and currently we make websites. Jemima has written and published many informative technical articles, adding to her awesome experience and background. She also has experience teaching yoga, ballet, and art. So we would like to welcome Jemima Abu.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you for that
Thank you so
amazing.
much for joining us.
No worries. I was like, oh, I did all that. Crazy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the art of personal branding, and I'm going to share my screen. Please confirm if you can see it. All right. Are we all good? And can you see my screen?
All right. Please, so there will be a Slido link for you to ask questions during the course of her teaching. So there won't be any interruptions of the class. So the Slido link will be in the chat box. So any questions you have, you can just send it in. And we'll listen to her training. And I just want to ask, how did you do everything? Yoga, ballet, and still be a front end developer. Wow, that's amazing.
Honestly, it sounds very amazing when you read it back like that. I just did it because it was yeah, I'll do it in my little self introduction then. So, like I said, hi everyone. My name is Jemima Abu, and I am a self taught front end developer and school taught systems engineer from Lagos, Nigeria. I currently work with a company called We Make Websites, and I'm currently based in London. So, a little about me. Well, I think like she already gave like a very amazing introduction. I think that was way longer than what I sent in. But yeah, basically what happened was when I was in Unilag, like when I was in school, I was looking to do like a lot of things basically. I got very restless if I wasn't doing anything. So I ended up going into like a lot of hobbies. I started yoga, I went into ballet, I taught art for a bit. And then in my second year of systems engineering, we started learning a C sharp course, and then I felt like I really like this course. I really like coding and building stuff with the computer. So I started teaching myself HTML and CSS. And then in my third year, I got a job. In my fourth year, I got my first remote job working for a company in the UK. And in my fifth year, I got accepted into an exchange program with a company in Lithuania, which is somewhere in Europe for people who don't know. And then basically at the end of uni, I moved to Europe and I worked in Lithuania for a couple of years. And then I moved to London where I got another job. So yeah, that was pretty much like my career progress. And I think one thing that really helped me in all of these things was like having a very consistent brand and a consistent image of what I wanted to do. So in everything that I did, I had like a this is who I am kind of picture of it. Like if I'm entering this thing as a developer, I'm entering as a instructor or anything, like I presented myself in a certain way. So that's just what we're going to be looking at today. I will say I do not have a lot of slides because I prefer this to be an interactive talk. I think like with things like personal branding, because it's so personal to you, it would be more impactful for you if you had the opportunity to ask me your questions like related to a specific thing you do. Because for example, how I develop my personal brand might not be the same thing for you. So I'm going to do about 30 minutes of slides and then I'll use the rest of the time it's 10:15 now, so 30 minutes per slides, and then you should have 15 minutes at the end to ask me whatever questions you want. So yeah, and then also as I said, there is the Slido link, so you can paste your questions there, and then I can address them later. I did have my own questions link, but I guess that'll be too many questions being asked, so I'll just let them handle that, and I'll get straight into it. So the topic of today, personal branding. What exactly is personal branding? When people say, oh, what is your brand? Or like, what is your image? What do they mean? According to Jeff Bezos, the creator of Amazon, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So basically, what that means is if you are not present, if you are not in a particular location and people are talking about you, what are they going to say? Are they going to be like, oh yeah, that guy, he's very like trustworthy, he's very responsible. Or yeah, that girl, she's very punctual, she's very diligent, she always gets things done. Are they going to be like, oh yeah, they're not very careful with their work or they're not very on time? So what are the things that people say about you when you're not in the room? That is your brand. Your personal brand is also your image. This is what is presented to other people. When people see you, what is their first impression of you? What do they assume like about you based on how they see you? Now, self-presentation is very specific to individuals and it's not something that can be exactly contained. Because for example, in Nigeria, there are certain stereotypes of people that have like locks or tattoos. But then if you go outside Nigeria, you see that people that have locks and tattoos, they work in like high establishments. They are CEOs, they own companies. So self-presentation is something that is very personal to people and it's something that should also be adapted to your environment. If you are based in a certain place, you want to make sure you're presenting your best self. And that is something that should be, like I said, personal to you, and you should be the one to know what is your best self. So when people see you for the first time, what do you want them to take away when they look at you? So we have a little diagram of what your personal brand is based on. And this was gotten from Marissa Mogachoid. I include a list of resources at the end of this slides that you can refer to that explain more on everything, because I'm just going to do a little brief introduction. So basically we have this little diagram that kind of explains what your personal brand is kind of based on and how it all centers around who you are. So starting off, your personal brand is based on what you do. So for example, if you're a student and you go to classes, you have a brand in class. Are you the class clown? Are you the diligent one? Are you the one that people can always go to because like they know you have good notes? Are you the one that people can always go to because like they know you can talk to lecturers and get them to move an assignment date or something? Basically, everything you do, like what you put forward is what determines like what you do and how people relate to you. And then what you create. So there's doing stuff and there's making stuff. So going back to my previous example of being the one that people can refer to for notes. When I was in like people used to photocopy my notes at the what's the name of that place? If you're in the engineering department, you probably all are because the engineering career. So, but when I was in like people used to photocopy my notes at the back of the there's this little place where they sell snacks at the back of Unilag. I cannot remember what it was, but yeah, people used to literally take my notes and photocopy it there. So I would say like my notes were the things that I created. I created good content based on the kind of notes that I took. So things like this are engineering market. Yeah, thank you. That's what it's called. So yeah, these are the things that I created. And that is kind of what affected who I was as a person as well. People realized that I was someone they could rely on for note taking, which was an interesting brand to have, but it's what it was. And then who you know. A very important part of your brand is who you surround yourself with. And it's not just people like, oh, these are my friends or these are my classmates. It is making deliberate efforts and putting in work to create these connections. Like when you go somewhere, when you say your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, who are the people that are saying these things about you? You want to make sure that you have created such an audience or such a network of connections that you are able to have people speaking for you, even in places where you can't reach. Like if you apply for a job and your friend refers you for that job, that friend is your representative in the room that you cannot be in. They're the ones that will vouch for you and say, oh yeah, no, this person is actually reliable or this person can be trusted to do this thing. And all of that is kind of what conjoins to make who you are and what your personal brand is. So having these things, doing stuff, creating stuff, and knowing people, they're all add up to create a personal brand. So I would say, yeah, that's a brief introduction into what your personal brand is. And now we're going to go into how you can build your personal brand. So you created this brand, like you have this brand of who you are as a person, but how do you define it? How do you make sure that people know who you are, basically? So let's look into the importance of personal branding. So we know what personal branding is. We understand that it is, people knowing you and you knowing people and people being able to speak for you. But what is the importance of personal branding? Why do you actually need personal branding? Well, first of all, your name speaks for you. So like I said, if you have people that know you in a certain room, or if you have people that know you in places that you can't get to, you want them to be able to like present a great image of you. You want people to be able to talk about you in such a way that other people want to meet you, other people are interested in you based on what people are saying about you. So you want to create your personal brand and you want to project this image forward so that people can talk about you before you even get into the room. And then it makes you credible. Having a personal brand, having something that you are based off on or that you've presented yourself as makes you credible. If people think, oh, this person is really good at doing this thing, it lends you this air of trustworthiness and people will refer to you for that thing and people will be sure that you can deliver when they ask you things related to that. And it stands you out of the crowd. Now, this is particularly important in the tech space because these days the tech market is very saturated. You have a lot of people learning the same things and applying for the same roles. So you need something that makes you stand out from the crowd in the sea of applicants. You don't just want to be sending your resume the same as everybody else, listing the same skills and everything else. What is that one thing that makes that so unique to you that would make you like a great fit for any role? So that is what your personal brand is. Having your personal brand, it's not just at that point, it's not just the company hiring a developer, it's the company hiring you specifically. So that is what's one importance of personal brand as well. And then it helps with your career growth. So like we've said, the personal brand, like it makes you stand out in the room, it helps people notice you more, it gives you credibility. All of these things lend themselves to helping with your career growth. The farther you go in your career, the more you want people to be able to like know who you are and know what you do. Even in your company, like when you're projecting from when you're being promoted from one role to another, you want to have this brand that you carry with you. Like they'll be like, oh yeah, this person would be great for a senior developer position because even when they were a junior developer, we saw how helpful they were with like peer reviews and everything like that. So that's all related to like importance of personal brand. So basically, if you want to grow quickly in your career, it's important to develop your personal brand. So having said that, let's move into how we can create our brand. So what are the steps that you need to take to actually create a brand that is unique to you? So this is a little pyramid of personal branding, I'd like to call it. And we're basically going to be looking into how each of these steps would lend themselves to helping you create your personal brand. So the first step you should take is the self-knowledge step. This is looking inwards and identifying within yourself what are these things that are important to you. So what are your missions? What are your values? What are your strengths? If you know you're good at something, what is that thing that you're good at that other people would say you're good at? If you cannot reflect on yourself, it's also a good idea to ask for feedback from other people. Asking your teachers, your parents, your friends, like, oh, what would you say I'm good at? Or what is something you would say that people can trust me to do? So things like that. So having the self-knowledge of yourself is very important and it's the first step in building your personal brand because this first step is what will lead you to the second step. And the second step in building your personal brand is your personal objective. So once you have created your, let's say, once you have identified who you are or like the things that you're good at, the next step is to define what do I want to be known for. So now I know that I'm good at writing content and I'm good at public speaking. What do I want to be known for? Do I want to be a renowned content creator? Do I want to be a renowned public speaker? Do I want to be a renowned instructor? Do I want to be a teacher? Identifying your personal objective when you're building a personal brand is crucial because that is the goal we're aiming towards. And then up next, we have your audience. So like we said, the room full of people that are speaking about you or the having people talk about you when you're not in the room, that is your audience. What circles do you want to be in? So for example, if I'm starting out in tech and I want to be part of like an Android community or stuff, I will go and join a specific group that's related to that. For example, when I was in UNILAG, I was part of the, what's it called, GDG, Google Developer Group. So that was a group of students in UNILAG that were all developers. And I think being part of that group was also very helpful to my personal brand because it exposed me to a lot of things that I wouldn't have known about. There were a lot of opportunities on the group I wouldn't have known about. I got to go to a lot of meetups, meet a lot of people in the tech space that were doing impressive things. And by attending those events and networking with those people, I was also able to develop my own personal brand more. Because one good thing about meeting those people and having like a good view of like, oh, this is what people are doing is that it helps you think of what do I want to do. So if you go to an event and you see someone that is doing something cool, for example, the first tech event I went to, it was a Google Developer Group event. And there was a speaker and she was a Google Developer expert in Android. And she's basically talking about her Google Developer expert journey. And I think that was like 6 or 7 years ago. But when I attended that conference, I was like, oh, I would like to be a Google Developer expert as well, because this sounds like something I would like to do. It's related to giving back to the community, it's related to teaching, it's related to being part of a renowned community. And so I put myself on the path to gain that accreditation. And I was recently awarded the Google Developer expert role late last year. So that was a useful path, a useful goal for me to have, because that was part of what helped me solidify my brand. If I know what I'm focusing on, then I know how to head towards it. So I'm like, okay, I want to be a Google developer. What do I need to do? I need to speak at a lot of conferences. I need to write a lot of articles. I need to mentor people. I need to volunteer. I need to be a trainer. So all these things are very helpful to developing a personal brand. And that brings me to the next point, which is self-improvement. So once you've identified who you are and what you need to do, you know like what you want to be known for. You've directed like your mission, goal, and your objective, and you've created your audience. You kind of harness like the spaces that you want to be in. The next thing for you to decide is, what do I need to achieve my goals? So like I said, when I knew that I wanted to be a Google developer expert, I started putting in like the deliberate efforts to achieve that goal. So for you, what is your personal brand? What is that thing you want to achieve, and what do you need to do to get there? An easy way for me actually to do this was to just look at people that already had that thing I wanted to do. So I would go online and I would look at other GDEs, and I would basically look at their portfolio and things they have achieved, and then that is what would help me direct that. So if, for example, you want to be a content creator, an influencer, you want to go online and like check other people's content, see what they're doing, see how they started. A lot of times people post like, oh, this is how I got started with this thing, and this is how I got started with that thing. So you basically want to find like a role model or somebody you want to like work towards, and then try to model yourself after that person's path. So the things you need to do to improve are basically the steps that you would take to then develop your personal brand. And yeah, that brings us to the top of the pyramid, which is the personal brand itself. So now you've gotten all these things done and you have your personal brand. So you want to make sure that you are projecting yourself in a way that represents your brand as well. And I like to think of your personal brand as being like a catchy tagline that you can use. So people like to use this thing called an elevator pitch, which is basically if you're in an elevator with like a CEO of a company or something, and you only had like 10 floors to pitch yourself to them, what would you say? I like to say, like, if you have that personal brand, if you have that image you're already working on, you don't need, like, it's not something that you would be worried about, because the minute you meet somebody, you understand how to explain yourself to them in a quick sentence. So I'm going to talk about what my personal brand is, and then I'll open the floor up for questions. Because, yeah, I think it was 9:30 already. So I'm Jemima Abu, and I like to think of my personal brand as a self-taught front-end developer. I like to say self-taught because I feel like teaching myself how to build, how to write code was very important to my journey. Because basically, when I was learning how to write code, I was coming across a lot of. Sometimes I would read articles or watch videos, and I'll be like, "Oh, this is very complex," or "I don't really understand this," and that kind of made me want to create content that was easier to understand. So having that self-taught journey was very important to my career development, because it made me like want to be able to create content that was easier for people to understand. And then being a front-end developer, because honestly, I just enjoy building websites. I really like using HTML and CSS. When I first started learning how to code, I was learning like Java, Python, all of that, and I was like, this is just not for me. And then I stumbled on HTML and CSS, and I realized, yeah, that's my favorite, and I stuck to it. So being a software front-end developer is the brand that I put forward. Whenever I go to a space, like I want people there to know that this is what I do and this is what I'm capable of. And beyond your personal brand, it's also being competent. If somebody hires me to build a website, or if I'm producing something at my company, it's important that people know I'm going to produce that thing in a good way. So having your personal brand, have it be something you're good at. For example, one of the things I like to share that I'm particularly good at, if you Google front-end developer Nigeria, my website will pop up on the first page. So I think it's like, this was a while ago, so it was like 2 results down. So now it might be like 3 or 4 results down. The point is, it is on the page. I have branded myself in such a way that even the internet is providing like this information when people look up a certain thing. So yeah, I think that was, it's 9:30, good timing. All right, and then the last link I have is just some additional resources, like I mentioned earlier, just some, I will try and share the slides, so I'll probably send that in an email to the organizers, and then they can probably get it out to you. But yeah, these are just some additional resources on things that I think are pertinent to helping you build your personal brand. And if you want to check it out, you can see it here. So thank you for listening, and any questions? Okay, do I just accept the questions, or will somebody organize that?
Oh, I'm currently trying to log into the
Yeah,
Slido link.
already.
Please hold on. Okay.
Well, why? No,
I'm trying
while
to.
I wait, I will keep talking some more because if there's one thing I'm good at, it's talking. So one thing I do like to share for when I was building my personal brand is I think one important thing that people don't realize is harnessing the power of being online, harnessing the power of social media. I think these days it's a lot easier to build a personal brand than when it was back then. Because back then, if you wanted to be recognized, you had to be published somewhere. Like you needed people to be writing about you in newsletters or like newspapers, or you needed to be publishing your own documents. So back then, it was a lot more effort to get recognized. But these days, you have Twitter, you have TikTok, you have YouTube, Instagram, whatever. You can post your own content online. And I think that's what people need to realize, that everything you post online kind of affects your personal brand as well. So harnessing your personal brand is also very important to your social media content. If people Google you, do they want the first thing that pops up to be you having an argument on Twitter? Which I mean, I think it's fine. I think that's what Twitter is for, having arguments. But is that what you want to be related to your brand? Is that what you want to be known for? Or do you want people to see like the articles you're creating, the content you've created, the places you've been to, so things like that. So even when you're posting online, I think one thing that most people probably do is like you can have a burner for being like toxic online if that's what you want. But then if you have anything that's linked to your name, like your actual government name, you want to make sure that that thing is presenting the best image of yourself forward as well. So like if you people are like investigating you for a job position or something, they're seeing all the content that you want them to see. So I would also say that curating your online presence is a very important aspect of personal branding as well in this day and age. So yeah, I'll do a little segue, a little extra information for y'all. How are we doing on those questions? Or actually, if you have like any other questions, you probably just ask them directly in the slides, in the chat while we're trying to set up this little link, just so I don't waste too much of your time. Because yeah,
The first question we have here is, can you give us any tips for how we streamline our internet presence to help build our brand?
yeah, so like I said, building your brand is something that is very personal to you. So streamlining your internet presence, it just depends on what you want to do. So if you want to be known for having a lot of followers or having like a influencer presence, like you need to be constantly creating content. It's something that you need to be like putting out actual details of your life. Like you need to be providing information and content to people. If you want to be known for somebody that is good in, like if you want to be known for somebody that helps people out in the tech space, that is something that you need to also present. So things like, one thing I like to do actually is I like to use the same username across all websites. So I have the same username on Twitter, on GitHub, on LinkedIn, on Medium. So like if you find me on one place, you can easily find me in another place, and I make sure like all my social media is connected and all of it is like one big web. So having things like that, being consistent with your social media usernames is what actually helps people find you easier in certain platforms as well. And that is also what helps improve your SEO score, because if somebody Googles you, like all your social media can pop up as once. But of course, like I said, if you're not comfortable with having your full personal information online, you can always use like a false username, like a burner account for like your personal stuff, and then you can have your professional name, your government name online for like your professional stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, in situation like right now, are we is our brand allowed to be diverse, or must we have a particular niche we must be on? Like, let's say
Um,
you're a content creator
yeah.
and you make content and everything. Obviously, you're making content, but do you have to like pick a specific niche, or do you have to go to a particular thing? Do you have to like, well, we can be diverse because there are people that are like very multi-talented, like in every area. So that's the question.
Yeah, I think for me, like I definitely think it's important to try different things. If you can have your brand be different things, then that's great. You know, do that for you. But I think it's kind of like that thing where they say, "Jack of all trades, master of none." Or it's still better than not being like not trying anything at all, right? So I think if you try different things and everything is working out for you, if you're able to be a content creator, if you're able to be a travel influencer, if you're able to have like a booming business online, then that's great. Make all those things your brand. Like it's very common these days, like even with students, like you go on somebody's Instagram and you see, oh, this is my hair page, this is my business page, this is my rental page. Like people do different things. But if you're trying to create like a specific brand, if you're trying to have a specific tagline, maybe pick the thing that you are best at or the thing that you enjoy doing the most. So you can try different things. You can have those different things related to your social media or like your online presence or like the image you're bringing forward. But it's that thing we say like in an elevator pitch, if you're in an elevator with the CEO of like a specific company, the CEO of a tech company or something, that's not the time to be telling him about your hair business. You want the image you're presenting to be curated to the person you're meeting as well. So for creating your brand, like we said, it's about who you know and what you do and what you can create. So make sure all those things you're doing are targeted towards the goal you're trying to achieve. That's what I would say.
That was a really detailed, very detailed answer. I hope I took notes. I hope you all as well took good notes. So the next question is from Rashid Olatunde. Olatunde. Hi Jemima. How can a junior front-end engineer become a senior front-end engineer? What are the steps to take and what are the things to learn using self-taught, using the self-taught part? Like as you said, you are a self-taught front-end engineer, so easy interaction.
That's a very nice question. So I think being a front end developer for me, like when I first started learning how to build websites, it was basically just me teaching myself for fun. And then I got my first job, and then that my first job is kind of what determined what I would learn. So I would say I've worked in like 3 or 4 or 5 companies in my career, and at each of those companies we would use different technologies. So I would have to learn that technology when I joined. So I would say being a front end developer as a junior is don't get bogged down by what frameworks you need to learn, right? Focus on learning the basics, focus on learning like the best practices for web development, focus on improving the user experience, accessibility, performance, like these important things that are not framework dependent, but they build like the actual websites. And then when you get into mid-developer stages, this is when you start taking on bigger responsibilities at work. At mid-developer stages, you should kind of like a sort of mentee to junior developers. So that means things like doing peer reviews, being able to like provide solutions to problems. Being a mid-level developer, it's not just people handing you things to build and saying, "Oh, this is what we need, build it for us." It's people asking you like, "What do you think is a good way to approach this thing?" And then as you progress more in your mid-developer career, you get to senior developer. So I think senior developer, it kind of branches off into 2 roles. You either have like a principal development lead, that's the person that's really responsible for all the tech in the company, like the person that builds all the infrastructure, like the design systems. Like if there's anything related to a build in the company, they can refer to you. Or you have like a developer manager. So when you're a senior developer and you're a developer manager, you kind of branch away from code and start focusing more on like improving the lives of your junior and mid-level developers. So you're kind of the ones they reference like, oh, we need developers to do this or we need developers to do that. And you're the ones they reference for that. So it's kind of like identifying which path you want to be. If you are a developer, do you want to keep writing code? So are you aiming towards being a principal developer? Are you trying to like strengthen your knowledge framework, strengthen your like front-end architectural skills, strengthen basically anything you would need to be able to build things that people could use to build other things? Or are you trying to be a developer manager? Are you trying to connect more with people, provide more peer reviews, help people if they're having problems? And yeah, those are, I would say, the 2 paths you could take from going from junior to senior developer.
All right. So a follow-up question by Rashid was given that then how will you know that you have reached the peak of a senior front-end engineer?
If they hire you. If you apply for a senior developer role and you get it, congratulations, you're a senior developer. That's really the main difference. Like if you're working in a role as a mid-level developer, you'll be giving mid-level developer tasks. If you apply for a role as a senior developer and they think you're qualified, then you're automatically a senior developer. It just depends on literally the role you're working on. If you start learning how to code today and you can lie your way into a senior developer job and do the work, then you are a senior developer. That's pretty much it. I think all these roles, they're pretty much defined by your actual career and the actual stage you are in that career. So if you've been learning how to code for 5 years, for example, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm a senior developer or if I'm still mid-level, apply for a senior developer role. If you get it, good.
All right. That's very that was very straightforward and very detailed. Someone asked, how do we measure the influence of our brand? What metrics do we measure statistically?
Okay, so like I said, for me, I use my SEO to measure my brand. So like if I Google myself or if I Google front-end developer in Nigeria and my website pops up, for me, that means I put my brand forward enough that people know about it. if you go to events and people are like, oh yeah, I know about you, or things like that, that is kind of like a metric you can use. So I guess it all depends on what you want to do. These days we have like very easy metrics because we have things like insights and like follow accounts on Instagram. So if your metric, if your brand is to be a person that is famous online, your followers are your metrics. Your insights are like the metrics you can see that. If your brand is to be a person that creates content or provides information to people, like if you write an article, you get like the little there's this like dashboard where you can see how many people have read your article, like Google Analytics. So you have like Google Analytics, and it shows you how many people have accessed your article, how many people have read your article over a while, and those are your metrics. So it's knowing what you want to do and then finding like the software that records that thing basically, and that will be your goal.
Okay, knowing what you want to do on the path of knowing what you want to do. A person asks, any advice for people who don't know what kind of brand they want?
Let's see. Yeah, I would say honestly, don't sweat it because if you are in university right now, you're not supposed to know your brand. Like that is why you're in school. You're learning. So like it's if you entered school and you had like a fixed idea of what you wanted to do, that's great. Like you've already started like farther ahead of people. But you know how like when you're in engineering in your first year, you do like what's that called? General studies. Like you do the one for English or something. I can't remember. Like you're not going to use that in engineering, but it's a good way of learning something else. And like if you do enjoy it, the GST things. So if you do learn something there that you can use and something that you know you enjoy, then yeah. When I first started school, I didn't know I was going to be a developer. I started as a systems engineer. I actually wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but I got into systems engineering instead. And I didn't know I wanted to be a developer because back then, like I think that was I almost said 2009. I'm not that old. What year was it? 2014, 15 maybe. So at that point, systems engineering was just 10 years old. It was a fairly new course. I like the tech space hadn't really blown up in Nigeria, so I didn't even know I wanted to be a developer until my second year when I did that C# course, and I was like, okay, I enjoy doing this thing. So for you, it might be in your fourth year. It might be like when they place you during. I keep forgetting all these names. There's that thing you do in your fourth year where you're placed with a company. It's like an internship.
IT.
IT, is that what they call it? COS? IT? Well,
Yes.
yeah, COS IT, yeah, that one. So like it might be during like your internship period that you're placed with a company and you learn, oh, this is what I want to do. It might be during your final year when you're doing a project and you have to like actually research something and you're like, oh, this is what I want to do. It might even be when you get your first job. You might get your first job working at the bank and you're like, oh, I hate working at the bank. I want to do this instead. And you pivot to that. So knowing your brand, it's not everybody is going to have like a specific brand. Not everybody can tell you immediately like, oh, this is what I'm good at. But that's why we have that little pyramid that we can follow. You know, if you yourself don't know what am I good at, ask other people. If other people say you're not good at much, start by getting good at stuff. So figure out what you would enjoy and then try to get good at it. So if you want to play music, learn how to play the guitar. If you want to write content, write bad articles until you end up writing good articles. If you want to be a chef, you know, and be like the next Hilda Baki and break the Guinness World Record, start cooking today. So it's basically just that. Figure out what you want to do. If you can't figure out what you want to do or you can't figure out what you're good at, try being bad at stuff first until you get good at something that you enjoy.
All right. That's really on point, on point. So we're gonna make mistakes till we finally get it right.
Yeah.
So I have a question here that says, is public speaking a highly important skill for building a personal brand, both online and offline? And there's a follow-up question that asks, how do you incorporate public speaking into your brand or start public speaking if it wasn't part of your brand initially?
Okay, well, like I said, it does depend on your brand. You don't have to do public speaking, but one thing about having a personal brand is that you do have to put yourself out there. People will not know your brand unless you put it out. So public speaking is just one way of putting yourself out there. If you post something on Instagram, you're putting yourself out there. If you publish an article, you're putting yourself out. If you publish a dissertation on ResearchGate, you're putting yourself out there. So public speaking is just one aspect of that. And I think for me, public speaking has been crucial to my career because it's the path I wanted to go down. I wanted to be a developer that also provided information to other developers. So public speaking is a great way of sharing content as well. And for me, public speaking is also something I enjoy doing. Like I think I'm good at it. If you think I'm good at it, so let me know. But yeah, I think I'm good at public speaking, so it's something that I enjoy doing. So it's something I try to do. That's something I'm good at writing articles, so it's something that I try to do. If you are not comfortable speaking in public, that's fine. You don't need to do that. Frankly, it's worse for your brand if people know you as a bad public speaker than if they don't know you as a public speaker at all. So if you have a brand that you feel like you need to get out there and it's not like public speaking is not for you, that's fine. Stay online. Like I said, these days it's much better because we have the internet. We don't have to be outside so much. You don't need to be getting published in the Times or in the Punch newspaper. You can just create your own brand online. So start a newsletter and get people to subscribe to it to get your information, or post online about your pictures. Like the 100 days of code, you can post online about your learning, and that would probably amass you some followers while you are learning as well. Yeah, public speaking is just one aspect of publicizing your brand. It's not something you have to do.
So, okay. All right. So we have another question. Do you have networking tips or advice? How
Oh,
to how to sorry, do you have networking tips or advice? How to reach out to reach peers without being leechy or looking like an advertising agency?
um, I feel like my problem is I'm actually bad at networking. That is one thing I will say. That is one of my not my strong suits. Like I can go to a conference, I can talk in front of 1,000 people, and I have no problem. But put me in a room with like 10 people and tell me to walk around and talk to them, and it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So some people are very good at networking. Some people can walk in the room and by the time they got out, they have like 5 LinkedIn connections, 2 job offers. Like one person has offered them their first child. Some people are very good at it. So I think like it's also a matter of skill. Networking, I'd say it's a skill. Based on what I've seen so far from observing people that are good at networking, I would say showing interest in the other party is just as important as letting them know who you are. So if you meet somebody, don't just like speak at them or like badger them about something. You're like, oh, you work at Google. How can I work at Google? Blah blah blah. Try to like make it more interesting, make it more personable. Oh, you work at Google. Do you enjoy doing that? How long have you been doing that? Would you recommend Google as a place to work? And then you can bring up your own stuff. So networking is just as much learning about them as it is getting them to learn about you. So if you even when you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, I feel like LinkedIn is a touchy spot because some people they just don't read their messages, and there's really no like direct way of reaching out to people on LinkedIn that you can say is good. So I would say like, oh, sometimes somebody can congratulate you, like somebody can post like a job advert or like a job they got a promotion at work, and they can reach out and be like, oh, congratulations, and they'll be like, thanks, and the next question is like, so can you refer me for a position at work, and then they just never reply you. So with LinkedIn, it's definitely it's easier to network in person, at least for me. That's what I think. Like networking in person, you're able to. It's easier to build like a personal relationship with that person as opposed to LinkedIn, where with LinkedIn you're kind of just like throwing yourself out there. But I would say with LinkedIn, yeah, definitely for the people that the messages I've gotten on LinkedIn that I've replied, it was people like sending me a message and like just kind of explaining what they wanted. So I would say if you are going to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, try to do that. Like send a cover letter, be like, oh, hi, I saw your profile online. I see that you work at this company. I think that I would be a good fit, blah, blah, blah. And I would really appreciate it if you would take a look at my CV or something like that. Like they may or may not reply you, but it's easier than saying hi, waiting for them to reply, and then saying how are you, and then waiting for them to reply. So I would say the two methods are different if it's online versus in real life. In real life, you want to have that conversation with them first before you tell them who you are. But online, they're just going to read your message and it's up to them to reply or not to you because of just everything out there. I would say those were my networking tips.
All right, so that was the last question, and it was a pleasure speaking. Being, it was a pleasure to have Jemima Abu with us today to teach us about personal branding. And as you all know, this is the last soft skill training, ECX soft skill training for this is the last one, the last session. So we're very, very excited and we're so happy. And we thank you so much for joining us. And let's know how to make our personal brand, how to put ourselves out there, networking, public speaking, meeting people, and just building ourselves up. And it has been amazing, amazing, and amazing. Thank you so much. You might become my idol. Like right now, I'm going to put you on my board like this, my dream mood board. Like
Oh,
Jemima
that's
has.
so nice. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. It was really fun speaking about this with you. If anyone wants to reach out to me online, like I said, my my name is pretty much my online presence. So Jemima Abu everywhere. So that's Twitter, LinkedIn, Medium, GitHub, blah blah blah. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the
So
program.
thank you very much, and that's an end. Thank you so much. We can all leave for joining us today. And two.
You have a really nice voice. That's
Okay.
good, brand.
Yes, my voice is also part of my brand. Thank you.
I know. So there's going to be a feedback form. So I'm going to be sending the feedback form for you to feel like your feedback for the meeting before Sorry, there was a network glitch on my own side. So I'll be sending a feedback form. So we would like to hear from everyone that has gone through all the meetings, all the workshops and everything. So we would love to hear from you. And it's in the chat box already. So someone's hand is raised. You can unmute yourself and speak up.
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I just wanted to say that I enjoyed this session very much, learning how to like put yourself out there, present the right um brand to people so that your work is seen on various platforms. And I just checked your your portfolio, and it was really impressive. Honestly, even though I'm not really into front end, but like I saw the responsiveness, I was going through your work and everything, career talks and articles you've written. It shows you're who you say you are, and your brand speaks well. So all I just wanted to say is that I'd love to like reach out, and if there's an opportunity for you to like, I don't know, train personally, because like not just after learning this, I'd love to know more from you. That's what I want to say. And if I could reach out on LinkedIn and I'll see if there's a possibility for that.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice of you to say. Yeah, of course, everyone is free to reach out to my LinkedIn. It's just my name. I usually put the links online, but I didn't have time to add them to these links. But yeah, if you go to LinkedIn, just Jemima Abu, and then I'm the first one there. I check my LinkedIn once every month, so I'll get around to it this month, and I will accept all your connection requests and reply on your messages there. If you want to reach me directly, I promise I check Twitter even less than LinkedIn. But you can also reach out to me on Twitter, and if I check that, I will reply to you there as well. So it's just these days I'm very not as online as I used to be, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll get back to you there.
All right then. Does anyone else have something to say to Jemima before she leaves the call and before we end the workshop? All right then. So that's the end. Thank you so much, Jemima, for joining us once again. It has been an honor.
Thank
It
you for
has been
having
yes. All right. So my name is David Odikredi, and that's a wrap. Thank you so much for allowing me to moderate this session. Thank you so much, and this is the end of the workshop. Thank you.
me. Bye.